4 millions of fans, Garth Brooks is the cowboy hat, the sold-out stadiums, and the voice behind Friends in Low Places. He's the man who turned country music into arena rock spectacle and became the best-selling solo artist in American history. But strip away the rhinestones and record plaques, and the real story is far more complicated. A life built on hard-won success, devastating personal loss, a painful and expensive divorce, and, in recent years, a legal storm that has followed him into his 60s. At 64, Garth Brooks is still filling stadiums. He's also still fighting battles that have nothing to do with music. A childhood built on music and discipline. Troy Garth Brooks was born February 7, 1962, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and raised in nearby Yukon as the youngest of 6 children. His mother, Colleen Carroll, had recorded for Capitol Records and appeared on television variety programs in the 1950s before setting music aside for family life. His father, Troy Raymond Brooks, worked as a draftsman in the oil industry and had served in the military. A steady, no-nonsense man who believed dreams meant nothing without discipline behind them. Between them, young Garth absorbed 2 very different lessons. His mother taught him to sing and dream big, while his father taught him that dreaming big without hard work was just wishful thinking. Family talent nights at home mixed both influences, and it was around the kitchen table that Garth first picked up guitar and banjo. Athletics came first, though. In high school he excelled in track and field, football, and baseball, and it was a track scholarship, specifically for the javelin, that took him to Oklahoma State University. While at OSU he started performing in local clubs with his roommate and something shifted. He discovered he loved connecting with a crowd almost as much as he loved competing on the field. Still, practicality won out for the moment. Brooks graduated in 1984 with a degree in advertising, a nod to his father's insistence on having something to fall back on. The first failure in Nashville. The pull toward music never went away, and in 1985 Brooks made his first attempt at Nashville. It did not go well. Overwhelmed and rejected almost immediately, he turned around and drove back to Oklahoma in under a day. It was a humbling defeat, but not a fatal one. He married his college girlfriend, Sandy Mal, in 1986 and kept performing locally while he regrouped. In 1987, Brooks tried Nashville again, this time for good. Rejection followed rejection until 1988, when he performed at a songwriter's night at the famed Bluebird Cafe. A Capitol Records executive happened to be in the room that night, originally there to scout a completely different act. That chance encounter led to a record deal almost immediately. Brooks's self-titled debut arrived in 1989 and blended traditional country storytelling with the energy of arena rock. It produced his first #1 single, If Tomorrow Never Comes. But it was his second album, No Fences, released in 1990, that turned him into a phenomenon. The record spent 23 weeks at #1 and gave the world Friends in Low Places, a song that became an anthem far beyond country radio. Brooks brought theatrical showmanship to country concerts that hadn't been seen before. Wireless headset mics, pyrotechnics, stage dives, and arena-scale production. Even controversy worked in his favor. The music video for The Thunder Rolls, which depicted domestic violence, was pulled from major country video channels for its content, and the ban only fueled public curiosity, pushing the song further up the charts. By the time the dust settled on his most commercially dominant years, Brooks had sold more than 200 million albums worldwide, making him the best-selling solo artist in U.S. history. He has won 2 Grammy Awards, more than a dozen American Music Awards, and a record 7 Country Music Association Entertainer of the Year trophies, a total no other artist has matched. What made his rise so unusual wasn't just the scale of the numbers. It was the way he refused to follow the traditional playbook of the country music industry. He treated albums as complete artistic statements rather than vehicles for a couple of radio singles, pushed ticket prices lower than promoters wanted, and later became one of the last major artists to hold his catalog back from mainstream streaming platforms, arguing the economics shortchanged songwriters. That stubbornness sometimes cost him visibility in the streaming era, but it also became part of his identity, an artist who insisted on doing things his own way even when it wasn't the easiest path. Sandy Mal and the marriage that built, and broke, everything. Brooks met Sandy Mal at the Tumbleweed Ballroom in Stillwater, Oklahoma, under unusual circumstances. Mal was working as a bouncer and got into a physical altercation during a bar fight the night they met. It wasn't romantic in any conventional sense, but it led somewhere real. Mal wasn't dazzled by Brooks's ambitions. She saw a person, not a future star, and that grounded quality mattered to him. She even earned songwriting credit on a couple of his early tracks, evidence that their partnership went beyond marriage into genuine creative collaboration. The two married on May 24, 1986, shortly before Brooks made his second, successful run at Nashville. Over the next decade they had 3 daughters, Taylor, August, and Allie, and Brooks has said many times that fatherhood, not his career, is the achievement he's proudest of. But the touring schedule that built his career nearly destroyed his family. Between 1989 and 1993, Brooks reportedly spent up to 300 days a year on the road, leaving Mal to manage their household and young children largely on her own. School runs, doctor visits, sleepless nights, all while her husband performed for screaming crowds thousands of miles away. In a 2019 documentary, Mal described the disorienting experience of a husband who came home from tour feeling like a stranger. Someone who had to be gotten to know all over again after every absence. The distance between them widened with each cycle of the road, and what looked from the outside like the best years of Brooks's career were, at home, becoming the hardest years of his marriage. Brooks has since admitted he didn't fully grasp how isolating that period was for Mal at the time. He was too consumed by the momentum of fame to see it clearly until years later. The couple filed for divorce in Tennessee in November 2000, citing irreconcilable differences. Brooks told Billboard at the time that the split was mutual and that both of them were focused on protecting their daughters from unnecessary pain. The divorce was finalized in December 2001, with Mal reportedly receiving a settlement in the range of $125 million, one of the most expensive celebrity divorces on record at that point. Despite the very public and very costly end to their marriage, Brooks and Mal built an unusually disciplined co-parenting arrangement, alternating custody of their daughters on a strict daily schedule for years, which gave the girls a stable routine even as their parents' relationship became a tabloid story. Losing both parents. Brooks's mother, Colleen, died of cancer on August 6, 1999. She was the woman who had first put music in his life, and her death hit him hard enough that he announced his retirement from music at a press conference in Nashville in October 2000. A decision that also coincided with his desire to be present for his young daughters after the divorce. In 2010, his father, Troy Raymond Brooks, passed away as well. A former oilfield worker and Marine veteran, he had instilled in Garth the belief that nothing worth having comes without real sacrifice. Losing both parents within about a decade took away 2 of the most important voices in his life. Even honoring his mother's memory became complicated. In 2005, Brooks donated roughly $500,000 to a hospital near Yukon, Oklahoma, with the understanding that a women's health center there would be named after Colleen Brooks. When that commitment wasn't honored, Brooks filed a breach of contract lawsuit in 2009. A jury sided with him in 2012, ordering the hospital to return the donation and pay additional punitive damages. A small, hard-won victory in an effort to preserve his mother's memory the way he'd intended. Grief kept finding him in other forms too. In April 2025, longtime songwriting partner Larry Bastian died at age 90. Bastian, a former biologist who turned to songwriting during the 1970s Bakersfield sound era, co-wrote some of Brooks's most enduring songs, including Unanswered Prayers and Rodeo. Brooks has described him as both a mentor and one of his closest friends, someone he met as a green newcomer to Nashville decades earlier. A second marriage, and a health scare that terrified him. Brooks first met future country star Trisha Yearwood in 1987, long before either of them was famous, when the two recorded a demo together in a songwriter's attic studio. At the time, both were married to other people, and their relationship remained a friendship for years. After both had gone through divorces, that friendship deepened into something more. Brooks proposed to her on stage at Buck Owens's Crystal Palace in Bakersfield, California, in front of an unsuspecting crowd. They married on December 10, 2005. Brooks stepped away from full-time touring between 2001 and 2005 specifically to raise his daughters, trading sold-out stadiums for school drop-offs and little league games at his ranch in Oklahoma. He has repeatedly called that stretch one of the greatest gifts of his life rather than a sacrifice. The marriage to Yearwood has weathered its own scares. In February 2021, Yearwood contracted a severe case of COVID-19 during a household quarantine, and Brooks has spoken publicly about how frightened he was of losing her, describing her as the anchor of his entire life. He leaned on prayer during that stretch and has credited the support the couple received with helping pull her through the worst of it. Yearwood recovered fully, and the couple has said the frightening ordeal and the forced closeness of quarantine actually strengthened their marriage. Years earlier, in 2006, wildfires tore across Oklahoma and came dangerously close to the Brooks family ranch, forcing an emergency evacuation while firefighters worked to protect the property. One more reminder that even a life defined by massive public success is not shielded from ordinary disaster. The Chris Gaines detour and the Dublin heartbreak. Not every chapter of Brooks's career has been a triumph. In 1999 he attempted to reinvent himself as a fictional alter ego named Chris Gaines, complete with a soul patch, a slimmed-down look and a rock falsetto, as part of a concept album meant to launch an accompanying film. The film never got made, and the album sold a fraction of what his country records typically moved. Today the Chris Gaines project is largely left out of his official career retrospectives. A much bigger public disappointment came in 2014, when Brooks scheduled 5 sold-out concerts at Croke Park Stadium in Dublin, Ireland, a venue steeped in Irish sporting history, not usually used for concerts of this scale. All 400,000 tickets sold out within a day. But when Dublin city officials only approved 3 of the 5 nights due to noise and residential concerns, Brooks refused to perform a partial run and canceled all 5 shows, disappointing hundreds of thousands of fans and angering the local tourism economy. It took 8 years for that story to find its redemption. In September 2022, Dublin officials finally approved all 5 shows, and Brooks returned to Croke Park to sell out the venue all over again. He later said he broke down in tears multiple times during the first show back, and fans who had held onto their unused 2014 tickets were given priority access, turning years of disappointment into one of the most emotional comeback moments of his touring career. The legal battle that changed the conversation. In September 2024, Brooks filed a preemptive lawsuit in federal court in Mississippi under the pseudonym John Doe, seeking to get ahead of allegations from a woman he anticipated would sue him in California. Days later, that woman, using the pseudonym Jane Roe, filed her own lawsuit in Los Angeles. According to court filings, Roe had worked as a hairstylist and makeup artist for Trisha Yearwood since 1999 and began working for Brooks directly in 2017. Her lawsuit alleges that Brooks sexually assaulted and raped her, including during a 2019 trip connected to a Grammy tribute event in Los Angeles, and that the misconduct continued over several years. The suit also accuses him of repeated inappropriate behavior, including exposing himself and sending explicit messages. Brooks has denied every allegation. In his Mississippi filing, he described himself as the target of an extortion attempt, and in public comments he has called the accusations devastating and untrue, at one point comparing the experience to having a weapon pointed at him. He addressed the lawsuit directly in an online fan chat just days after it became public, telling supporters that the legal process could take up to 2 years. The case has moved slowly and been complicated by its two-front nature. A California federal judge denied Brooks's request to dismiss Roe's lawsuit in December 2024, but paused the California case pending resolution of the Mississippi matter, meaning the underlying claims can't move forward there until the jurisdictional questions are settled. A separate dispute over whether Roe could remain anonymous became its own legal fight. After Brooks's team named her in an amended filing, her attorneys sought sanctions, arguing the move amounted to retaliation against an alleged victim of sexual violence. In September 2025, a Mississippi judge ruled that she would have to proceed using her real name in that court, and by November 2025 she had appealed that ruling to a federal appeals court, where the outcome remained pending as of the following spring. Brooks, for his part, has said publicly that admitting to any kind of settlement, even a quiet one, would feel like confessing to behavior he insists he's never engaged in, framing the fight as one he intends to see through rather than resolve quietly. As of mid-2026, both lawsuits remain unresolved, tied up in jurisdictional questions about which states' courts should ultimately decide the underlying claims. No trial date has been set, and Brooks continues to maintain his complete innocence throughout. It's worth remembering this is a civil matter, not a criminal case, and that the allegations remain contested and unproven in court.